Fantastic, everybody. I'm going to also turn off my video now because really it's the content that's more important. So I'm going to turn me off and we can just look at the slides proper. So welcome then to this particular session. And it's really the second part of delighting your customers. Part 3 is really going to be about, attracting customers and acquiring customers. And we're doing it back to front because everything that we spoke about last time and today really contributes to a process which is almost a formality. One of the marketing gurus made a point that if you've done your marketing properly, and I would add, if you do your customer care properly, then the sales process becomes almost superfluous because your customers are actually marketing on your behalf. So part 2 of delighting customers. So what we have is a situation where if I was asked to describe, the history of my business, the plans always had one nice big straight line starting in the bottom left-hand corner and moving to the top right, and everything would have worked out fine. In reality, it was more chaotic than that. And Jack Welch from General Electric, he basically made this statement: if you're not confused, you probably don't know what's going on. And of course, from that perspective, where do we start? How do we take a look at all of the literally dozens, maybe even hundreds of issues that we need to take care of when it comes to running a business? Well, really, the bottom line is if you don't have customers, you have no business. You can have all the money in the world given to you by banks and venture capitalists and everybody else. You can have systems and operations and even brilliant products. There's nothing worse than a brilliant product failing because of poor marketing. So I think from that perspective, really, it's about getting those customers in as quickly as possible and making sure that we take care of them so they keep coming back again and again and again. And we don't need to keep replacing them when they leak out the barrel, so to speak. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today is based on my next book, which is called "Oh, That Was So Nice of You." And really, it's about how do we create awesomeness. I know it's very much a teenage word, okay, to use these days. Everything seems to be awesome, but really the subtitle of my book, and I'm going to just magnify it over here, is 156 innovative ways to make your customers fall in love with you. And come back for more and tell everybody. Now, people say to me, but 156, where are you going to find all of those? Let me tell you, if 156 is actually not exaggerating, there's a lot more ways, and I will share with you where we get those from. You are the best originators and innovators of those ideas. I'm going to just throw out some seeds. So if we just quickly cover what we did last time, I basically said that in terms of loyalty and customer loyalty and becoming a brand that your customers love, there's 2 things that form the foundation, and everything rests on these things. And we're really not going to spend too much time on them today. But the first was getting the basics incredibly right, no mistakes, making sure that things work as they were supposed to do. Stop doing all the dumb things that we do in business, okay? They're not really dumb. We know why we do them, but customers don't. And then the second one, which is perhaps a special case of the first one, is to make sure that you make it as easy and effortless as possible. Customers today have been spoiled by websites like Amazon and various others where they get an instantaneous response, where things just work the way they're supposed to. And what happens is, of course, we then assume that everybody else in the world is going to be like that. So we're not going to spend too much time, more time on this today. I'm going to just come back one more time to talk about easy and effortless.
Hold on one moment, please. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
The router, please mute yourself. Thank you.
Okay. All right. And then we touched very briefly last time on how special relationships need to be. And I made the point that we've got to give customers evidence that we really truly care rather than just platitudes. All companies have wonderful platitudes and very inspiring mission statements and vision statements and, posters all over the show about how important their customers are. But in reality, okay, that doesn't work out that way always. So we need to give customer's evidence. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today is really about building those relationships. The main themes of today, however, are really about this idea of value innovation. How are we going to surprise them and add value for them, and constantly and continuously find creative ways to give unbelievable personal and memorable experiences? Now, you can see from this picture that these all intermingle with each other. They all look very neat and nice in this little pyramid, but in reality, you know, there might be one idea that you have which touches on all four of these areas. But what happens is when you become unique and special and differentiated, that then takes you to the blue ocean. And the blue ocean really is the unasked for, unexpected little surprises that customers get, which makes your offer almost irresistible. That's what we're looking for. We want to become indispensable to our customers. And the only way we can do that is by becoming irresistible to them, where they say to themselves, there's nobody else in the world that will do this for me. And we have a big advantage, particularly in small businesses, in terms of making sure that we create these new market spaces. We also have the luxury of being able to chase just a handful of customers at a time, and they make us extremely profitable. Scaling it up later on becomes a little bit more difficult, but what we want to do is make our competitors irrelevant. So that's really the summary of how far we got last week, and we continue then with that this week. The theme that I hope came through to you last week was that it's really the best news is that small differences lead to massive results. It always reminds me of, you know, that fulcrum thing, that with a little bit of leverage, you can get massive results, particularly if you start looking at, for example, the frustrations that customers experience. You've got to be able to put yourself in their shoes. And a great example of that is Takis Biltong, all right? They were the first in our country that, oh, and by the way, for those of you watching from overseas, Biltong is the South African version of jerky, what the Americans call jerky. It's dried meat. It's absolutely delicious if you've never tried it. But when you eat this Biltong, what tends to happen is that little bits of it get stuck in your teeth. We all experience that, and we all just assume, well, that's just the way it is, but not Taki, okay? And this young chap, when he started his business, amongst other things, he would put a little sealed toothpaste into your pack. And it became so popular with his customers that eventually it took a couple of months before Woolworths and other retailers were doing the same with their biltong. But just that ability to put yourself in the customer's shoes. And by the way, when your competitors imitate you, it's fine as long as they your customers remember that you were first. They will always then see your competitors as just cheap imitations of what you did. So you've got to be able to make it in their face, so to speak. So what Taki did was, on the packet, he said, now with a free toothpick. I don't know what it cost him, maybe a couple of cents really, but it made a difference. And the others who have done the same. We've got the exclusive books and Seattle coffee shops, you know, because coffee and cake and books just go well together. I once traveled on an airline called Etihad, and what happened is that when you're flying with children, it's very stressful. So they have a sky nanny, all right? And what the sky nanny does is, in the quiet moments, they come and take all the children away, take them to the back of the plane, give them books to draw and keep them busy while the parents can have a bit of rest. And it makes a big difference, okay? One that I haven't seen yet, but one of the frustrations, for example, of buying a new car is that the first time you get a license. So the dealership will do all the paperwork for you. But in exactly 1 year's time, guess what? You then have to go and stand in queues and do what you need to do. Now, imagine if that dealer also took advantage of that and at 10 months into your lifetime of your car said, hey, we haven't forgotten you, and we just want you to know in 2 months' time, your license is going to be expiring. Can we take care of it for you? And you could probably even charge a fee for that, for the hassle factor. All right. If you go on holiday, you're probably going to take your pets to a kennel or a cattery or something. And that happens often. Okay. But what else needs looking after? You have some people who, for example, house sit and they take care of your pets, but there's probably a lot of things that you, when you are missing from your home, would like taken care of. Okay. Lights left on and feed the fish and do whatever is necessary over there. All right. Another way of putting yourself in your customer's shoes, when you drive into Santam's parking basement, they obviously had a lot of employees banging their cars on the concrete poles. So obviously when you have a building that is, 20, 30 stories high, you need a lot of concrete piles in the basement to keep this whole thing stable. And what they found is that a lot of their employees in parking actually scratch their cars and bump their cars. So somebody had the bright idea to put these little padded things with the branding of Santam on there. Now, they didn't apply that to their customers until a very junior employee actually said, but hang on, we could probably do the same for our customers and get a bit of free publicity. So they looked on the internet, or maybe they've done this at home or whatever it is, and they then said, you know, those pool noodles, why don't we buy these things and we cut them in half, we put our branding on them, and we send them to our customers for your garage. And what happens, it comes with a little piece of sticky double-sided tape, and you can put this in your garage so that when you open your car door, it doesn't hit the wall of your garage. It hits one of these little pool noodles and you don't damage your car. So it's just being a little bit innovative and taking ideas that already exist. These are not new things, but they are newly applied to customers and their frustrations. All right, so value innovation, if you're looking for definitions, it's really about taking to a blue ocean. The authors, Chan, Kim, and Renee Bourne, say the starting off point is what they call the 4 actions framework. And it's really about constantly and continuously asking 4 questions. The first question goes something like this. What do we need to reduce? Which factors in our industry, which everybody kind of just takes for granted, can be reduced to well below the industry standard? What are we doing now that really adds very little or maybe no value for customers, but which customers would appreciate if we did less of this? And related to that, you might even eliminate some things. Which factors that our industry takes for granted can be eliminated altogether? Now, sometimes it's not possible to reduce or eliminate, but the moment you find ideas of things that you can do, it then frees up the time and the money and the people and the time to do the actual other questions, the 2 really important questions. These 2 on their own will probably add value for customers, because now they don't have to have the schlep of going through all the paperwork, etc. But what you also then need to ask, okay, so what factors can we raise to well above our industry standard? What are the things that we want to be known around the world? We are the best in our industry at what? Is it speed? Is it value? Is it design, as it was in Apple's case? What is it that we will raise to well above industry standard, and then the others will copy? And then, speaking of Apple, what can we create from scratch that our industry has never offered? Now, the answers of those 4 questions then give you then a unique new industry value curve. You have now done things, in some cases, exactly the opposite of what your competitors do. And that then leads to all sorts of amazing innovations, which customers love. Okay. And they say, wow, why didn't anybody else think of this before? When I was a youngster, we used to read comics with, a telephone in the wristwatch. Many of you, probably my age, will remember reading those comics. Well, today there is a telephone in your wristwatch. All right. They took that dream, that fantasy, that science fiction, and turned it into reality. So what you do, and this is where now the real value lies, and I don't want to get too much into detail over here. You can do this on your own, but you start off by creating a buyer journey map, okay, before you ask those questions. And essentially, this is a very generic model. In some industries, there are 9 or 10 steps in this. In other industries, there might be only 3 or 4 steps. But starting with inquiry, your customers then go through a process where eventually they get what they're looking for, and then they finally dispose of it. So inquiry is getting onto the internet, on the social media. Maybe somebody calls them a sales representative, something like that. And then they make some decisions. There's a thinking process they go through, and then they actually go through the purchase process. And again, we have been spoiled by companies like Amazon and various others, because the purchase process is literally just a couple of clicks in some cases. And then the thing is actually delivered. Now, in some cases, it's delivered instantly. If you buy training on the internet, as soon as the credit card transaction has gone through, you have access to your training. You can start within the next 2 minutes. In other cases, it might take a few days. In other cases, if you look at the government ordering a new bridge on a road, it might take years before the thing is delivered. Okay. And then sometimes we need to install things. We've got to unpackage between delivery and installation. And then if you buy software or you buy new hardware, we just got a new printer at the office, and we have to install printer drivers, and they don't give it to you on a disk anymore. Now you have to get onto the internet. It's just an absolute nightmare. Whatever happened to plug and play? All I want to do is just print some documents. I want to plug it into my computer or into the Wi-Fi and just print my documents. But it's a schlep, and literally 3 days have passed and I still haven't been able to print a document. I think I'm going to ask my 12-year-old and he'll probably do it in 5 minutes and say, Dad, what's the matter with you? You know, that's just the way it is. And then are there any supplements or complementary products that we can sell them? If there are, for example, some things that get used up in the process or consumed in the process, are there some other services that they might enjoy? So typically a gym might sell a personal trainer to you as an add-on. You can go to the gym whenever you want to, but if you sometimes need a personal trainer because you've had an injury or because you've been diagnosed as obese or whatever it is, they can then add on an extra deal there for you, okay? And then the maintenance, again, with vehicles and equipment, you know, who's going to maintain it, who's going to take care of it, and can they actually be one step ahead of you and warn you? These days, for example, most motor manufacturers are installing a little cell phone in your car, and when you're due for a service or when something's gone wrong, they contact you beforehand and say, hey, there's something wrong over here. Rackspace is a company that offers you, you know, the cloud computing. This is where they store all your information. And if something's gone wrong, they are with your storage, they are very good at, you know, making sure that they restore it before you even realize there was a problem. SEMA liked this one last time we were together. This is about disposal. You know, what happens when you want to get rid of it and replace it? What happens when you decide you're going to emigrate? What happens with the old car oil when they take it out your car at the service? So disposal has got to be environmentally friendly, etc., etc. And so the whole cycle is repeated. Now, at each stage of the cycle, and as I said, in your business, it might be 10, it might be 4 stages, but at each stage, it's possible to ask those 4 questions and then to use the things that we're going to talk about to add value. So you superimpose those 6 to 8 to 10 stages of the customer experience journey, and you create a list of the value levers, which is what the rest of our session is all about. And then voila, you put it onto some sort of a matrix. So here at the top, let me just get the laser pointer up here. I'm going to put the laser pointer so you can see it better. At the top, we've listed all the stages of the buyer's experience cycle. And then all of the things that we're going to talk about today, improving customer productivity, making things simple, convenience, reducing the risk, fun and image, environmental friendliness, and a whole host of others. We're going to add about 40 more at the bottom over here, and that's not even all of them, all right? But all of these things then create a little matrix, and what you can then do is you can pick in any spot, you know, the way that you would like to be unique in your industry, something which emerges from customers' frustrations, something that surprises them, and then suddenly they're saying, wow, there's nobody else in the world that actually offers this. And now you can see why I said to you, 156 is not exaggerating. There are literally dozens, hundreds, possibly thousands of ways in which you can then add value for your customers. So, you know, all of these things makes or saves you money, time, effort, provides high quality of product or service, informs you and gives you access, etc., etc. All of these things are the things that we are going to cover today. All right, giving advice, reducing complexity, simplifies your life, reduces your risk. We spoke about that already, helps you to avoid anxiety and hassles and worries and the things that keep you awake at night, and maybe even just helping people get organized. There's a lot of software, for example, that you can download for free on the internet, which helps you get organized. All right. Project management software, for example, is a great example over there. All right. So that's where I say there's literally so many possibilities. You'll never be able to get around to all of them. All right, so folks, let's now just take a look at a nice little video. This is from one of my favorite people, Richard Branson, the founder of the Virgin Group and amongst others, Virgin Atlantic Airlines, but he's also into hotels at the moment. And when the new Chicago Virgin Hotel was opened, okay, one of the staff said, hey, we've had an idea and would you be happy to do this? So I'm going to play you the video and then we'll talk about that afterwards. So this is now Richard Branson, as you can see, reading a story to a lucky couple.
Richard Branson personally tucks everyone in at night. Who tucks me in then? Are you ready for bed?
I think so, yeah.
We are. Would you like me to read you a story?
I would love it.
Okay. So, is this your favourite book?
It is.
It is, I thought it was. Okay. Where the Wild Things Are. Story and Pictures by Morris Sender. I think you should curl up, otherwise you're not going to get to sleep. The night Max wore his wool suit and made mischief of one kind and another, his mother called him Wild Thing, and Max said, "I'll eat you up." So he was sent to bed without eating anything. That very night in Max's room, a forest grew. And grew. And grew until his ceiling hung with vines and the walls became, you asleep yet? Close your eyes.
Okay.
Became the world all around. And an ocean tumbled by the private boat for Max, and he sailed off through night and day, and in and out of weeks and almost over a year to where the world is.
Right.
All right, one fun one.
Oh yeah, what should we do?
So there's not enough money in the world that will ever buy you an experience like this. Business hero took 5 minutes out of his time. He was going to be there for the opening of the new Chicago Virgin Hotel anyway. But the point is that something very special happened. If you watch this video on YouTube, all you do is just type in something like Richard Branson reads bedtime story or something like that. It'll come up, and it's been watched millions of times. But for the fans of Virgin like me, we say, oh, that was so nice. I wish that would happen to me. I would love to meet him. I'd be desperate to meet him. So it ticks boxes at so many different levels over there. And, did it add value? Of course it did. Did it get him free publicity? Of course it did. And a whole host of other things that we'll be talking about. It was a fun event. It was a naughty event. I have to tell you, I'm most impressed. I don't know if I would have kissed the husband. It's very easy kissing the wife, but he actually had the courage to go and kiss the husband goodnight as well. So that was a moment of truth for him. Richard Branson, what you might know, is actually dyslexic, and you could see him struggling reading. I don't know if he's ever read a bedtime story to his children, but he even looked a little bit uncomfortable. But for his customers, he'll do anything. And that's the point, okay? It makes such a big difference. So let's now start proper on today's session. There are probably three areas in which you can add value. The first one is the heart, okay? In other words, we touch their hearts with something that they could never buy for themselves, something which just makes them feel very emotional and very positive, okay? We don't want to make them sad or angry, obviously, but we want them to feel very positive about our business. The next one is the mind, where we sparked their curiosity and we help them learn and grow. And then, of course, not to exclude the pocket, okay? What have we done so that they are actually better off in their pocket and they actually have got something which has saved them a little bit of money? So the value sweet spot is in the middle. If you can think of any little event, it might take just a few seconds, something that you can give to your customers. We'll talk about gifts in a little while, but anything that could meet all three of those criteria, then you will have created value and you'll have done something spectacular, and your customers will not forget that and will always remain loyal because of that. You see, when it comes to value and customer loyalty, it's like a scale. And really the bottom line is the more value you add onto the one side of the scale, the more likely it is that they're going to make that sacrifice that they have to make more easy. They will find it easier to part with their money, to spend time with you, to make the effort to go into doing business with you, waiting in queues, whatever it is. So, for example, if you take a popular restaurant, if the food is delicious and it's the place to be seen and to see, and the service is fantastic, people will book 2, 3, 4 months in advance. In fact, at some restaurants overseas, a place like El Bulli in Spain, you had to book years in advance to go for one dinner, okay? Because they were world famous for doing that. So it's really about how much value can we add on one side, particularly things that don't cost you money. And you'll see a lot of those that we talk about today are not going to cost you anything or cost you very little, but then the customers say, this is irresistible. I've got to do this. So it's like a scale. And really the blue ocean then is, are we totally emotional and irrationally logical? This is really what it's all about as human beings, okay? And we asked this question last time, what is it that they want? What do customers actually want? And so what I want to do in today's session is go beyond just the basics. I want a product that works. I want the invoice to be correct. I want to, somebody to talk to me politely and to greet me, and I don't want to have to wait forever. Those are the basics. That's where the bottom of the pyramid things. But now, if we ask this question again, what do they want? Sometimes they don't even know. They don't know what they wanted until we give it to them. And that's where the empathy comes in. That's where when Taki from Taki's Biltong looked at the way people eat biltong, he was sensitive enough to understand that biltong gets stuck in your teeth, all right, and could then respond to that. So really what we're looking at today is, the focus on the less tangible and emotional elements of the customer experience. And really, this is where perceptions rule. And the reality is that, we all like to think of ourselves as logical, rational animals, okay? And that's what separates us from the animals. But in reality, our emotions drive most of our buying behavior. You can see it with a number of examples. Wine tastes better when you pour it from a bigger, heavier bottle. Boxed wine does not taste the same. Painkillers are far more effective if they are branded. And if you tell people that they are more expensive, an expensive headache pill is going to be working much better than a cheap one. All right. Chocolate tastes sweeter if the blocks of it are round rather than if they're square. And you can see how Cadbury's and Nestle have now made them more rounded rather than squares. You know that after you've had your car cleaned, it seems to drive better. It doesn't. It's just cleaner, but it actually feels quieter. It feels smoother, and it's just a better car altogether. So Buck Rogers, who ran IBM for a long time, okay, made this statement many years ago in the 1960s. People buy emotionally and then justify with logic. And I mean, remember, he was selling computers. He was selling these massive IBM machines. And when you demand logic, okay, you pay a hidden price. But what you also are doing is you're destroying the magic. And IBM eventually tapped into that. And I don't have a copy of the advert, but there was an advert of two very serious businessmen. In those days, you didn't have to include women, but there were two serious businessmen. And the one says to the other one, nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. It was a very serious thing, but it was also an emotional thing. Nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. So the human mind does not run on logic only anymore, okay? Just like a horse doesn't run on petrol. And the moment we start looking at rational, logical, make a list of all the features and advantages, it's not enough. We have to tap into the emotions, which customers are not even aware of, or perhaps won't even admit to. Now, I just want to show you how irrational we are as human beings and how crazy this is. What I'd like you to do, if you are staring on a screen right now, and that little line just between the dark and the light little keys over there, just in that area, just stare at that for a couple of seconds. All right, just make sure that, and you can see the difference between the white and the dark. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to change anything. I promise you, I'm going to just put a black bar across that line. So I'm going to press it now and it'll just come across there. Oh my goodness, what happened there? Let's go backwards. You'll see I haven't changed the picture. The picture has remained the same. But what has happened is our perception of it has changed. We took away the contrast and now it's all gray. All right. And so from that perspective, I mean, this is a very simple visual exercise. Now imagine how much more complex it is when we start looking at, emotions and so on. Here's a good example. Why did Uber succeed? Uber is not by any means a disruptive technology, okay? Because we've been able to use a telephone to order a taxi since about 1903, okay? So it's really not something that is particularly new. But what is really significant is a psychological thing about it, because waiting for a taxi when they claim it's going to arrive in 10 minutes and then it doesn't arrive is very frustrating. And I don't know about you, but I remember my parents used to get very het up when they ordered a taxi, once a year for a special occasion, and then the thing wouldn't arrive. And, they'd keep phoning the taxi company. But if you now watch a car approach you on a screen, that's really very reassuring. And instead of wondering, is the driver actually out there now? Maybe he's already left and, didn't see us waiting there for him. Or maybe is that him parked around the corner and all those things. It's a very uncertain and undignified activity, not to mention very unpleasant and stressful, okay? But now what we do is we take that away, and we can look down and say, oh, I can see why he's late, because he's stuck at that as the traffic lights. They're always busy. I think I'll just have another quick drink before he arrives, type of thing, all right? So what Uber did is they reduced anxiety and uncertainty. They helped us to worry less and to feel more secure. That is a completely emotional thing. And I think, I don't know about you, and I'm now admitting a lot about myself, but do any of you, just by the way, when you time a arrival, you want to time your arrival on the pavement just at the same time as the Uber arrives, because it looks like you're a celebrity and the lift just arrived at the same time. You can just pretend that you're a celebrity and everybody's at your beck and call. Okay, it's a huge ego boost. Okay, and you feel you are not just effectively some guy waiting for a taxi at the end of a queue. Okay, but I'm a celebrity now. I walk out the building and the car's waiting for me. All right, and it's not only Uber. I know that the Discover card, an overseas card in the United States of America, it allows card holders to instantly freeze and unfreeze their accounts without canceling their cards. So in South Africa, if you lose your card, we automatically assume that a criminal must have taken it, all right? And so we get onto the phone, scramble onto the phone, phone the call center and cancel the card, and it's a big schlep. Now, these guys have said, no, we want to take that worry away, and what we'll do is we'll let you freeze it for now. Nobody will be able to spend. And then if you find it tomorrow morning or in a week's time, you can then unfreeze your account. It just helps a little bit more. Another one related to waiting. Many of you will have been onto some kind of an underground somewhere in the world, all right? I haven't been on South Africa's Gautrain yet, but I'm sure it does the same. But in the London Underground, where this picture comes from, all right, there's one thing that caused a lot of frustration in the past, and that was the uncertainty. When's the next train coming? Now, customers don't mind waiting, and waiting even longer if they know how long it's going to be. So you don't feel frustrated that the next one is 15 minutes away or 6 minutes away or whatever it is, because you know that. But if you didn't know, even 5 minutes seems too long. 5 minutes is frustrating. And it's the same as when you track your food delivery on a map. What I love about Uber Eats and Mr. Delivery these days is that they confirm on the app that your order has been placed. The chef is busy cooking your pizza now, and then the chef has just finished cooking your pizza. Our driver is actually at the entrance. He's just picking it up over here, and then you can track the driver as he comes down Sylvia's Pass and goes past the school and stops at the traffic light, and then you can time it right so that as the driver is about 200 meters from your house, you can go out into the driveway and meet him and get your food. I love that, all right? And it's just not just because it's a toy, it's because it just, when your food is arriving. Okay. Another one about how irrational we are. This is a wine glass. And when you look at the wine glass design, it's actually rubbish if you think about it, okay? If you ask a bunch of designers to come up with a receptacle that will sit on tables and contain wine, I don't think anyone in the world would, say, well, the first thing we want is a really high center of gravity so that this, wine holding device is fundamentally unstable, okay? Then we're going to put it on a tiny little base, and, we want to make it really high up. It must be long and tall so that if you mistime one little gesture at a party when you point at someone, or you just wave your arm about, it's not just going to tip over onto the tabletop. No, it's going to catapult the entire contents all over the white tablecloth and to everybody around you. So let's be honest, the design of a wine glass is just rubbish. Okay, so why does it persist? Okay, why is it that we keep using this? Well, the reason is that because, for example, in a restaurant, they have just ordered 300 wine glasses or more, and all of us at home have at least a dozen or two wine glasses in a couple of sets. They probably all match each other, and if one of them breaks, unfortunately, they don't all break at the same time. So when you break one wine glass, you say, okay, it's time to now replace it. So I'm going to find one exactly the same. You don't question and say, okay, look, we need to really rethink this whole wine receptacle strategy. Okay, so what you do is you go and buy another stemmed wine glass, impractical, completely expensive, doesn't work over there, and it's been like that for the last 200 years or so. I've got two children. One of them is now 18. The other one is still 12. But I remember that it was just, you know, not something I'm kind of waging war on wine glasses at the moment. Okay. And by the way, as an extra bonus, the wine glass doesn't fit nicely into your dishwasher, so you have to wash it manually. Okay. So I mean, these things that are just universal become sticky, and we're just very reluctant to change, obviously. Now, imagine that you were going to compete with Coke or Pepsi, for example. Here's another new example, which for 140 years have been the most popular cold non-alcoholic drinks in the world: Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola. All right, in variations thereof, diet and zero and so on. Now, what is everybody in the room going to say? They will probably say, if you said, okay, we're a competition, we're going to launch a new drink over here, and you take it to the boardroom, to the marketing director and the chief executive and the chief financial officer of the company, and you say, right, I think we need to produce a new drink to compete with Coke and Pepsi. This drink is going to obviously have to cost less than Coke to produce. It's got to taste nicer than Coke, and it comes in a really big can, so people get good value for money. So what happens is they'll all nod their heads. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And no one is ever going to get fired for suggesting that. Okay, it's a completely logical thing. Make it better, give them more, make it cheaper. But imagine you go to that same board of directors and you say, you know what I think? I think we should develop a very highly priced, slightly disgusting tasting drink in a tiny can. All right. And that's exactly what Red Bull is, okay? It is really not a very nice drink, all right? And it's expensive, 15, 20, 25 Rand. If you go to a club, it's up to 40 Rand, okay? You would be fired if you made that suggestion. The value comes from doing the opposite of traditional marketing, okay? Which is, you know, find out what they want and work on ways to give it to them. Or work out what you can make well and then find an ingenious way of making people want it. Is it a scam? Is Red Bull a scam? No. It's what capitalism is all about, okay? Nobody has forced to buy Red Bull, but it's funky, and they sponsor, you know, Formula One teams, and they do crazy things like flying airplanes through bridges and all sorts of, you know, amazing, exciting, you know, things that are adventurous. And so they've linked their name with that. And when I open a Red Bull, I don't think only of the caffeine that's going to keep me awake, but it's also all of those other things. I can pretend that I'm, you know, Lewis Hamilton or something like that. That's what it's all about, you know. I just recently got a NASA top, and I can now pretend that I work for Elon Musk, designing rockets and sending them up to Mars. Another good example of how irrational we are as human beings and how you don't have to spend a fortune. This is a typical lift lobby in a building, all right? And, you know, inevitably they plan it badly, and there's too many people in the building and too few lifts, and people hate waiting for lifts. In fact, in some organizations, you might have to wait in the morning as all the staff are arriving, maybe 15 minutes for an empty lift. It's so boring, okay? So what you could do is you could get a whole bunch of new hardware, rebuild the whole lot, add expensive software to control the lifts. You know, this one goes only from floors 1 to 10. This is the express one that goes from floors 10 to 20, and so on and so on. Okay. And you can do a lot of very expensive things, build new lifts on the outside of the building. You can do those things to get rid of the frustration of waiting for lifts. Okay. Or you could change customers' perception of it. So what you could do is just install some nice decor and some mirrors for 1% of the price. Okay, make it look good. Okay, so you zhuzh it up a little bit, and what happens is, you know, even though it doesn't make sense and everything still continues, the wait still continues. Okay, whereas before the people were jabbing impatiently at the buttons and getting furious. Okay, once they had mirrors, well, this time was then spent on either narcissistic grooming, if you're on your own, or some mild sort of voyeurism, looking at, you know, the pretty girl that's standing next to you, and you can look through the lift mirrors so that you don't have to stare at her directly. I mean, I'm being a typical male over here, but you see, that's what makes the complaint stop. We didn't change the lifts, we didn't change the hardware and the software, we changed customers' perceptions of it. So these are the good things. Okay, one final example. Okay, was landing at Johannesburg International at Otambo a long time ago. And what happened is before lockdown, and the pilot, we could see as we landed that we were going now to the middle of nowhere. We were going out into the fields of the airport. So the pilot then gets on almost immediately and says, well, folks, you've noticed there's some good news and there's some bad news. The bad news is there's no parking spot next to the jet bridge, okay? And everybody on the plane, we've all been working. It's late at night. We just want to go home to our families. So you just hear, oh man, you know, these guys can't get one thing right over there. He says, but the good news is that we've got buses that are going to take you right next to the entrance, so you won't have to walk too far. Now, you and I know that because we've experienced that already, that's what's going to happen anyway. But he just changed your perception. He just pointed out the positive over there. So my contention is therefore that actually improving a customer's subjective experience, the irrational emotional experience, by an order of magnitude might be a whole lot easier and cheaper than, you know, building a new airport building and escalators and elevators and all the rest of that stuff. That's really what it's all about, just changing the customer's perception. All right. And so I think from that perspective, you know, we can just do something where we take a look at their lives. This is a Mexican cement company. It's called Cemex, as you can see at the top there. And they have a scheme called Patrimonio Hoy. What is this thing? In the Catholic environment in Mexico, when a little girl in particular, it happens with little boys as well, but more so with little girls, at the point where she becomes 13, she's now considered a woman. And there's a big ceremony in the church, her confirmation. And what happens is the parents prepare for this from the date of her birth, because they know that 13 years from now, they're going to have to throw a huge party. And what happens is that it becomes a very big strain on their finances. So these guys at Cemex set out to change the mindset a little bit. They said, look, your beautiful little child has just been born, and you're going to have to spend a lot of money, which you're going to spend in one day and you'll never see anything for it. Imagine if you could give your child on her 13th birthday her own room. And so the scheme actually helps customers by giving them a savings account, getting better interest than they would get at the bank. And then when the time comes, you buy your cement from Cemex, but they also train you how you can personally build your extra room for your daughter, build it and paint it. What do you consider? They give you the plans and they train you how to do it and so on. You see, now, when you are poverty stricken, and a lot of Mexicans are poverty stricken, okay, this becomes a big thing. So you haven't wasted that money. You've made an investment in your daughter's future over there. Makes a big difference. Okay, so that's the irrational side. And of course, I guess that's why it makes experiences so amazing. I once went and saw the Blue Man Group at Monte Cassino. It was one of the most incredible, amazing shows I've ever seen. It was just stunning with all the things that these guys actually did. There were some amazing things when they were drumming and the lights flashing, and it was just absolutely incredible. And there were some bizarre things as well. One of these guys actually took one of those doctor's cameras, you know, that they do surgery with, and he put it down his throat, right into his stomach, and you could see what he had for dinner. That was quite disgusting, but it was still, you know, on this big screen, it was still quite an amazing thing to watch. But what happens, okay, is that, you know, you probably won't be able to put on a show with you know, a rock concert. If you had the budget to do so, I'd say brilliant, but most of us don't have it, okay? And we're not there to produce spectacular musicals or events like that. We don't run theme parks or five-star hotels. So what can you do? All right. Now, one of the things that most companies default to is rewarding customers, all right? You spend so much with us and you will get some kind of a reward. And I want to get this out of the way right at the beginning. Do freebies and gifts and points work? Of course they do. Otherwise, companies wouldn't do them. By all means, reward your most loyal customers, but do it in a meaningful way. Rewarding me is a good thing, particularly if I've shown loyalty to your business. And you can provide all sorts of benefits of being a loyal customer. So hotels and airlines and banks and retailers have done this for a long time now, and they've got all got their schemes where you can accumulate points and, you know, get their frequent buyer programs and all sorts of things. But the point that I want to make with these, that they do work, but there's always a but. All right. And it really goes back to the story of broccoli. Okay, there are dangers. You see, broccoli is not as nice as ice cream. So what we do is we say to our children, okay, if you finish your broccoli, you can have ice cream for pudding. All right. Now, the children learn that I will suffer a little bit now, have my broccoli, but I'm going to get my reward later on. all right? And whether, if we take away that reward of the ice cream, then the kids are going to stop the broccoli straight away. And it's the same with us adults, whether it's with children or adults or customers, we tend to default to carrot and stick because rewards and punishments work, but they are very powerful in the short term, but often tend to undermine what they set out to achieve. If we are looking at true loyalty, fanatical loyalty, like you would get for Manchester United, for example, or a sense of patriotism for your country, or for your religion, or for your old school, it's not going to be about, okay, when I go to my old school, they'll give me a free ice cream. It's something much deeper than that. And so it's the wrong approach. So it's far better to ask, what will make our customers love our brand? What will create positive feelings for us? What will make them become fanatical in their support? What will make them say, I know that this is good for me, in the case of broccoli, for example. So the question is then, do we give corporate gifts? And I did a little post about this in my LinkedIn post today and a couple of days ago. You see, it depends on the company. Very often a gift to the customer is actually a gift to the company. The company gives itself a gift, because what they do is they put their branding on it. And now what happens is, and I've got the proof of that, by the way, if you take a look at any traffic lights where there's homeless people or people sitting begging at traffic lights, how many t-shirts with company logos do you see on them? Okay, people get these t-shirts and they've got the company brand and then they just give it away. It doesn't mean anything. And this is particularly true when you've had a bad experience with a company. And what happens because of that bad experience, they send you something with their branding on it to say, well, we're sorry about that. But you see, it depends on the brand. If you love the brand, and that's why I put the Escort gloves over there, out of the blue, as a little surprise, the MD of Escort, who is a client of mine, but I'm also a customer of theirs, okay, sends me a little box. Inside the box are these oven gloves. They sit right next to my stove, and we use them every single day. I did not resent that the Escort branding is on there. In fact, it reminds me every day about what a wonderful company this is, how I use them as an example of what it's like to be loyal to your customers, okay? So if I love the company, then I'll have a tattoo made of the company on my shoulder. But if they don't love your brand, or even worse, okay, if they are neutral or have a problem, then a corporate branded item is a reward to themselves. Okay. Let me tell you another example. So a friend of mine, Eric, he was actually a competitor of mine. He emigrated to Scotland. He was getting to retirement age. And one day he said to me, I need to meet with you for a cup of coffee. You know, I'm leaving, but I need to meet with you. And when I arrived at the coffee shop in Sunninghill, okay, he had gift wrapped all of his business cards, all of his leads, all of his prospects, all of his connections. He had put that into a nice little box and he said, Aki, I'm giving this to you. Maybe this will be useful to you. All right. And I think from that perspective, it cost him absolutely zero. He did happen to put a little box and a ribbon around it. And, you know, it made it even more special. But the fact that he thought of me and said, I'm going to pass my clients on to you. I trust you with my clients. That's what it's all about. And it was such an incredibly powerful present. And it cost nothing, but it was incredibly emotionally binding. And we still stay in touch, by the way. At least once a month, we stay in touch either through social media or through WhatsApp. So there's some rules for thank you gifts, and I've stolen this from a book called The Purple Goldfish by Stan Phelps. Excellent book, highly recommended. But he says, when you give thank you gifts, make sure that it's relevant to the customer. It should benefit the recipient, okay? Make sure that it has a true benefit. It should not be a one-size-fits-all thing. It should be kind of unexpected as well, okay? And it should be a surprise to them. Think about what Eric did for me with the business cards, and it delights them, okay? And it's a branded act of kindness. I think that's really what it's all about. It should also be limited. Try to select something that's rare or hard to find and unique to your business. Think of a signature type of thing, all right? Look at what Branson did. He's never going to do that ever again, or maybe he will, but it was so special over there. It was so limited, all right? Expression is what the E stands for, all right? And what I'm talking about over there is, you know, many times it just comes down to the gesture itself. It's not how it was not so much what was given, but how it was given, the spirit in which it was given. Okay, it's a spirit of we care enough about you to find out that you as a youngster, you know, did karate training, and we want you to enjoy this book or whatever it is. That was also a gift I received recently. And is it worth spreading? Is it sticky? Is it memorable enough that the person will want to share their experience by telling a friend or 3,000 of their friends? Okay, so this is these are the rules for thank you gifts. Okay, and you also need glue, and this is something else which I like working with. Okay, it's really about give, you know, and I'll tell you what the L and the U and the E stand for, but giving is a little gift. So the Hilton hotels around the world, okay, at some of the hotels, when you check into the hotel, you receive a chocolate chip cookie, okay, a little packet, a little paper bag with 2 or 3 little cookies. And by the way, if you're a diabetic, they've got diabetic ones too. It gives such a wonderful impression. In your first couple of minutes at the Hilton Hotel, they do this giveaway. Now it costs them, they do about 300 million a year of these cookies. Okay, so whoever's got that deal has got it made. But for the benefit they are getting, for the amount of free publicity that they're getting, it's absolutely phenomenal. And not only the free publicity, but the loyalty of customers. Customers will go and spend thousands of rands per night in a room just because they're looking forward to that cookie. Another one, a local example. Okay, this is from Mozambique restaurants. There's one just up the road from where I live. As soon as you get to your table, they put down the menus. The waiter introduces himself, and a few seconds later, they bring these little paper cones with some nuts inside, completely free. Okay, it just puts you in a good mood. A friend of mine, Colin Berachowitz, old school friend of mine, who used to run the Black Steer in Yeovil in Johannesburg, when we could still go there, he used to take a tray of sherry. I mean, the cheapest sherry you could find. And because he knew people waited forever to go and have the ribs and the steaks at the Black Steer, he would take down this tray of sherry, joke with people, and hey, have a free sherry, have 2 if you want to. It was just, you know, something quite spectacular, and people didn't mind that to wait 90 minutes for ribs type of thing. All right. And there's a company in Sunninghill in Johannesburg, a computer company, that when you go there to visit them, when you get back to your car, they've given you a free car wash. They wash your car while you're at your meeting. And they do this even when they run seminars and webinars at their premises, okay? And they hire a whole bunch of homeless people, people who are unemployed, and then they pay them to wash your car. And when you get to your car, there's a little car stuck on this windscreen saying, you know, with our compliments, we washed your car. Just nice little gestures over there. So give little, give something little. There's a shop, an ice cream shop in Mhlanga called Fredo, and I'm sure at the other branches they do the same, but you pick your flavor for what you're going to have for your ice cream, but you can also get a little mini scoop on top of that with another flavor, especially if you want to try another little flavor. So it's just a little thing. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. It's a small sample, okay? And then U stands for unexpected, a little surprise over there. When you go to PG to have your windscreen replaced at PG Glass, they look at it and they say to you, look, especially if you're not insured or if it's going to, you know, cost you a lot of money, they say, listen, it's just a small chip. We can fix it. We don't have to replace your whole windscreen. We've got a process over here. We drill a little hole, we fill it with some resin, and it'll take you, you know, half an hour, and it'll be as good as new. You won't be able to notice the difference. So they actually are losing money when they do that. But in the longer term, they are gaining loyalty. And, you know, if you want your windscreen replaced, there's lots and lots of other choices. Just type it into Google Maps and you'll see the choices in your neighborhood. But I will always go out of my way to go to PG Glass. The same happens with, by the way, Super Quick. I've also just learned that they also do a lot of freebies for you. All right. And then it's little extras, just little extras. Give little unexpected extras. Those are the kinds of things that happen. There's a Chinese restaurant in Norwood in Johannesburg called the Fuji Restaurant. And what happens is when you don't finish your meal, you didn't finish your beef with cashew nuts or whatever it was that you took, that you ordered, you can take it home in a doggy bag. All restaurants do that. But as an encore, what they do is when you get home, you realize they've also packed a container with extra rice. Okay, so you get free extra rice. You might have finished the rice in the restaurant, but they also give you free extra rice. Again, small gesture, cheap, but very meaningful. What about another one? There's a place called Holiday World, very similar to Sun City. Okay, many of you will have been to Sun City, but this is in America. It's called the Holiday World Splashing Safari. It's not unique because of its, massive, Harry Potter land or Disney type characters wandering around. It's not. It's just a park where you can go and swim. But there are two things that really set apart Holiday World, and you see this on the social media. What they do is they offer free sunscreen and free drinks, all right? So what happens, okay, is as you pay your ticket, and the ticket is not cheap, let's say the equivalent of 150 Rand, what happens is you get with your ticket, if there's 4 of you going in, you get 4 plastic cups. And there's these machines dotted around all over the place. You help yourself to as much free cold drink as you want. And then every now and then there's a little stand with free sunscreen. It's like a big barrel of sunscreen. And you know those little squeegee little things, you press the thing on top and out comes the sunscreen? Because they're saying, hey, people come here, they forget their sunscreen at home and then they get burnt. And we don't want them to remember that they came here to our place, spent the day here, had a wonderful time, and then had to sit, in a bath for 2 days because they got sunburned. So it's little things like that that make such a symbolic difference, but they make the world of difference and they don't cost a fortune. It's built into the price. So what's your chocolate chip cookie? That's what you need to ask. All right. But there's other ways of doing it as well. So those are the tangible things, the giveaways, the gifts. But, there's things like badge value and honoring your customers. Okay. Representing, giving them some kind of achieved status. These are things I've taken off various websites. And some of them are, you're so honest, you're so customer focused, you're so committed. Oh, what an insightful comment. All these little emojis, but you get them as badges when you complete a module of the training or something like that. Okay. And, they make you feel welcome, but they also reinforce that you've done well, that you've completed this exercise, or they've given you some status. All right. And it's a great example. For example, you can get at some places valet parking for free. It's wonderful when they do something like that. All right. So you can promote them to others. You can support their work, share their work, introduce them to each other. You can subscribe to their comments on the social media, share their thing. They might put up a post which, maybe wasn't that great, but you share it amongst your followers and they are grateful that you actually did that. You comment, you make comments, say, I didn't realize that was fantastic. Okay. In other words, what I'm saying is that it's easy to make them feel important. And it's easy to just press that dopamine button that they get, just like any casino does. As I mentioned, you can introduce them to others who can help them, or they can help each other, all right? Ask them their opinions, their ideas, their input, their feedback. All of those things, honor them in some way. Mention them in your dedications. For example, I've learned that, and I do this completely authentically, when I mention people in my books, okay, what I do is I'll say, hey, Arnold Princely from Escort shared this story with me. And I will send Arnold a free copy of my book. But guess what the next step is? He then orders another 20 copies to give to his family and to his clients and his friends. All right. So these are the kinds of things. I'm actually doing it authentically to honor him and to say he shared the story with me, but it's obviously in the dedications they do that. So, how would you feel when people were constantly saying nice things about you? All right. You can send notes to their families, for example, send a letter to their partners, send a letter to their bosses, their parents or their children, telling them how great their family member is and what a big difference it makes. I've seen this working very well in many companies where a really forward-looking leader will write a letter to the family of a particularly good employee and say, you know what, I am so pleased that she is a member of our team. She's absolutely wonderful. And we know we sometimes, keep her away from home, but thank you for that type of thing. All right. Put up street signs in the hallways, naming portions of your offices after them. Liberty does this, okay? They name their rooms, their training rooms after their favorite brokers over there. So kind of thing that makes a difference. Singapore Airlines uses video face recognition technology to remember their customers. And so what happens is on your first Singapore Airlines flight, they come and talk to you. Who are you? Oh, fantastic. And are you on business or pleasure? All the usual kind of questions. And then later on, they come and take a little photograph of you, and they say, hey, yeah, just as a memento of your visit with us. And then the next time you get on the plane, they will then now acknowledge that. So what happens is in that passage on the way to the airplane, they've got the video cameras, which you think are security cameras, but one of them has got this face recognition technology. And what they do then is they say, hey, somebody's, one of our old customers is coming on board. And as you walk into the entrance, the lady will say to you, hello, Mr. Kalliatakis, nice to see you again. And you don't know that they use technology to get that. And then it even goes one step further. On one occasion, I'm a teetotaler. I don't drink any spirits with one exception. Because I don't like taking sleeping pills and I can't sleep well on planes, I usually order a double tot of anything. And that's what I say to them. You can give me whiskey, you can give me brandy, you can give me anything you want, but just give me a double tot, no ice, no anything. This is my medicine to sleep, all right? And so on one occasion, traveling back from Singapore and Malaysia, they said to me, why don't you go and have a seat now? You're in, and then they look at your ticket, you're in seat 32A, and I will bring you your double tot in a few minutes' time. Okay, so it's just one step ahead over there, and they've got literally 33 million passengers that travel with them in the bad years. It's up to about 45 million in the good years. Okay, so these are the kinds of things. You can do something unusual, something that is remarkable. Here is what looks like a normal business card for a company called Lush, okay, which actually does your lawns, okay? They specialize in green lawns. They do it for golf courses, but they also do it for domestic lawns if you have a problem with weeds and so on. But what happens is when you turn the card over, you feel it's a bit bulky, and the card is actually a little envelope. So it's printed with the business card, and inside, okay, for best results, spread seeds, then Lush, okay, and then add Lush. And you find these little grass seeds that you can then plant in your garden. Just nice little gesture of their tiny, tiny little present, okay? This is again from Virgin Atlantic. I told you that one of my favorites. I once was lucky enough, I didn't pay for it myself because I'm stingy, but once enough, I was lucky enough, a client actually paid for my my trip on so-called upper class. And in upper class, this is what you get. You get those little salt and pepper cellars. They're as big as or as small as they look on the photograph over there. They're probably smaller than the size of your thumb. And as you can imagine, because they're so beautiful, okay, and so attractive, they get stolen a lot. Now, if you do happen to take them, okay, when you turn them over, it says on the back of the foot, it says pinched from Virgin Atlantic, okay? And they know that you stole it, okay? I'm sure they don't sit and count them up at the end of the journey, but they're saying, hey, if they're going to be stolen anyway, we might as well put our branding on it, okay? So it's a nice little thing. So doing something remarkable, unusual. I tried this once. It was one of my most popular products, and I must tell you, it was crazy. It was called Rock Your Customers. And what happened is I would arrive at a formal presentation, no suit and tie on, but I would put on a bandana and my clip-on sunglasses and a wash-off tattoo, take my guitar, which I might add, I can hardly play. And the whole presentation, 1 hour, was of rock songs that where the words, the lyrics were actually something relating to customer care. Okay, so for example, one of the songs was I Can't Get No Satisfaction from the Rolling Stones, a song that most of you are familiar with. And what I would do, it was just glorified karaoke. I would say to the people, okay, here comes the song. Tell me if you recognize this. And I'd press a button on my computer and it would go da 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 da, and the song would play. Okay. And then if they didn't participate, I'd say, no. I'm starting it again. Are you going to get up this time? You're going to clap a little bit? Are you going to sing with me? And they were dancing in the aisles. They were, you know, but they never forgot the message. I was charging a fortune for this presentation, I must tell you. And, you know, people, I was just booked sometimes for 2 or 3 conferences a day to do this presentation, okay? And it had nothing to do, or it had very little to do, but it was something that people enjoyed, all right? And made me feel, you know, like I was a rock star, which was my dream as a kid. Okay, so the power of emotions in customer experience. It's really about creating fun and entertainment. So let me just go back here, you know, putting smiles on their faces, you know, delivering happiness, okay? And we're not only talking about ship cruises and rock concerts and fun fairs and things like that, but anything which even brings a smile for 2 seconds onto their face. Stupid little knock-knock jokes, for example. All right. Now, here's one from Monte Casino during lockdown. Obviously, hotels were very much affected, but they created an outdoor entertainment area. And what was happening indoors before with correct social distancing was now happening outdoors, and you could wear your mask if you wanted to, but they responded almost immediately. Another thing that happened is that there were drive-ins all over the place. On top of Santon City in the parking lot, there was a drive-in, and a few places. The local golf course down the road from where I live, once a month would have a drive-in show, so you wouldn't have to actually, you could see the movie, but you wouldn't have to actually get out of your car. Just little things like that. Generating happiness and positive feelings. The things that work are music, color, contrast, surprise, party. Food seems to be so instinctive. Just giving a cheap little bag of popcorn has incredible effects, okay? Or a little, paper cup of slushy or something like that. You can rent the machine, okay? And things like quizzes and contests and competitions, name this product, name this song, whatever it is. Bosses serving customers. I saw this in Botswana, where on a particularly hot day, a boss actually went and bought ice creams and then was serving it to the customers. The manager of the bank, if that happened in South Africa, I'd probably get a heart attack on the spot over there, okay? My bank manager giving me ice cream, dream on, okay? Personalized cartoons and sketches by an unemployed artist. You call them in and then they just draw, a picture and you just give it to your customers at an event. There was once an account that slipped through the net. I don't know how we didn't pay it, but after about 60 days, instead of saying we're going to send you to the lawyers, the credit agencies are going to be after you, Jimmy Abbott is going to come and beat you up. No, they just sent a nice little covering letter saying, hey, please help us over here. We're getting desperate over there. I immediately looked at, what happened in the company? Why didn't we pay these guys? And I think literally within about 2 minutes, it was paid for already, okay? Just because they were nice about it, okay? So entertainment breaks, hire acrobats and jugglers if you have to, or singers or rock bands. If you don't have money to hire a rock band, go to your local school. Your local school has probably got a band of teenagers and they'd be delighted to come, for a couple of $100 and do a gig at your offices. It's really not a difficult thing to do. Or even better, hold your own talent show where your staff, display their talents. There's an amazing amount of talents. You'll probably find that there's a magician that works for you, and all sorts of other, amazing things. Okay. So bring smiles, bring humor, bring joy. And remember, you don't have to be a humor creator. I don't make up jokes. I can't make up jokes. I, sometimes find it very funny. I don't find things funny, but you can be a humor creator. You pass it on. You steal ideas. So humor is a secret weapon in business and in life over there. And people, love it. And, Jerry Seinfeld was fantastic. You can just imitate him. He took little everyday situations in life and turned them around and made them funny just by highlighting them. I remember one episode that stuck in my mind was where one of his friends in the flat said, do you know that people's biggest second biggest fear in the world is of public speaking? And they say, and Jerry said, what? You mean that is dying the first one? There's no. Dying is number 3. The third biggest fear is dying. So what about now dying and public speaking? So Jerry then starts, okay? He says, well, if public speaking is rated worse than death, he says, imagine you're at a funeral. Does that mean you'd rather be in the casket than give the eulogy? I mean, it's just so stupid, so ridiculous, so exaggerated, okay? But it is so true. And you take those life situations. Mark Twain was particularly good at this. He wrote a thing once. He obviously had a bad bank manager and hated his bank. And he said, a banker is a chap who lends you the umbrella when it's sun's shining, but wants it back when it starts raining. You see, we just take something and we twist it around, okay? And you just do exactly the opposite. This is a vehicle wrap, okay, which I saw. It's actually just the truck over there. This part, the sports car, is actually part of the sticker. So it's part of the wrap. So they've done it so nicely that it looks like there's the tires, but it's actually just the tires of the bus, the minibus, the delivery van over there. All right. Here's another one from Italy. Fettuccine, and they actually just put a little see-through plastic window over there. Tagliatelle for all those bad hair days. And then here's spaghetti, the long straight ones. I mean, it's just not difficult to think of these things. I mean, it's just amazing for me. And there's the katavapi, big curly hair. And of course, it doesn't mean that the pasta was any better, but the box was completely different. It put smiles on people's faces. That's what it's all about, okay? As you know, Nando's are fantastic at this. If you order extra hot, this is what's going to happen at home. I mean, they're just fantastic. There's also, just so that people don't think I'm favoriting Nando's, you'll remember this KFC advert, which I really loved. They were talking about one of their products, and it was Staatsdienst. If any of you have ever been to renew a license, get a new passport, something like that, you'll recognize this one.
So I say, no, you did that in blue pen. Tell them the system is offline.
Next!
Okay, so I mean, I just find this. I'm watching now and I'm laughing, and I've seen this 100 times. Okay, it's just so typical of today's situation. Okay, it's particularly sensitive now because my 18-year-old needs to go and get his learner's license, and we don't have a proper ID document. We've still got his birth certificate, and you know, we're just dreading when we're going to have to stand in queues and so on. So at least this will give me a little bit of courage to carry on over there. All right, here are a few more examples. Kit Kat in the UK. This is a beer in Holland. I can't even remember, but I mean, quite a cool, amazing three-dimensional thing, as if the beer bottle is coming out over there. At the time when the World Cup soccer finals were happening in Italy, they put a tiny little ball in the urinal. Ladies, please forgive me for this one. I've got 10 minutes left, 15 minutes left over there. And they, you know, men would sit there and, you know, score goals. I mean, it's just stupid if you think about it, but it was a lot of fun. Okay. This was, you know, a thing done in New York, hate dropped calls, and they took out the calls and they almost as if it had been cut out with a can opener, and then they planted it in the pavement over there. All right, and then a final one from Las Vegas. I've never been to Las Vegas, but a friend of mine went there, and this is at the airport. This is what the belt that brings your luggage looks like. It doesn't take much to go and be remarkable and novel and different and new and funny, okay? And to just interrupt normal, all right. Another great example, Tasha's at Mandela Square in Sandton in Johannesburg. When you go into the loo, instead of hearing some inane, stupid, you know, neutral music, they actually, there's a beautiful actor's voice, an old voice, which recites poetry. So the old poems that you and I did at school all those years ago, you know, done by an actor, world famous actor. It's just absolutely beautiful over there. And, you know, you stay longer so you can hear the end of the poem, you know, famous poems. All right. So these are the kinds of things that just make it different. And then, of course, controversy also helps. This was the Sex Pistols. They were reasonably talented, but they weren't more talented than many other bands. But what they were very good at, Sid Vicious and Johnny Rotten, was creating controversy. And some of you might remember, and you can look up the case study on YouTube, they then attacked, they did God Save the Queen, the British national anthem. And what they did is they actually changed the words. They swore a lot and everything. And the video was actually banned on BBC, okay? And Virgin, run by Richard Branson in those days, was a very new company. But what he did is he leapt in there with his record label and said, well, there's a whole bunch of people who think this is great, okay? Not the standard, you know, old people like me, but the people who are young and they want to be different and they're militant, okay? And that week, Virgin sold more copies of the now banned Pistol single, okay, than the official #1, which was by Rod Stewart, okay? It charted it at #2, okay? So for some people, the truth was it was just too hard for them to take, but there was enough people that made this into a best-selling album. Okay, of course, they were all into drugs and all sorts of things, so it was quite an ugly situation. Just a couple more examples. This is from Dubai. I took this photograph in Dubai. They were promoting South African tourism, and they said, well, there's no zebras in Dubai or Europe except at the zoos, but we have zebras in South Africa, so that's a real zebra crossing. Just suddenly struck me, and not just because I'm South African, all right? And then this was a famous book, Men Are From, Women Are From Venus and Men Are From Mars. And then somebody, one of our clients did this as a presentation, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. And inside there was a little bit of Bavaria beer over there. Just a nice exclusive little present. Yes, I don't want to get into the subject of sex sells, but there's some taboo subjects, okay? We all know this movie. You know that When Harry Was Sally was launched in 1989. That's 33 years ago. And yet if I said to all of you here today, which movie is this from? You will all know, you will all remember the scene, and you will all be able to tell me exactly what happened over there, all right? The funny part was these two women at the back over here, and the one said to the other one at the end, so what happened is obviously Sally then, Harry said to her, I'm sure you don't fake your orgasms. And she said, yes, I do. And he said, no, prove it. So in the coffee shop, she actually then pretends to have an orgasm. And at the end of that little scene, one old woman turns around to the other, and the waiter comes and says, can I take your order? And she says, I'll have what she's having. Okay. I mean, it was just a classic line over there. And I'm sorry to bring up sex, so it's not the appropriate venue. But I mean, taboo subjects create buzz, okay? Even 32 years later, we remember them. Secrets, when you can keep things secrets, mysteries, okay, especially mysteries that are uncovered over a period of time, okay. People love secrets, okay. It makes them feel special that they're in on the secret. That it unleashes also the power of telling friends. You know, the thing about a secret is if you keep it to yourself, it's not fun. But you know, things like secret venues, secret guests, secret information, secret events, secret sales, secret previews, for example, all of these things, secret behind the scenes tour of our factory, okay. And when you reveal these things to a special select group of customers, it has a very positive effect. They like it, all right. You know, you have like a chef's table in the kitchen where the chef prepares a special dish just for you, or there's a hidden menu, all right, where only the people who are in the know can order from that hidden menu. But if you're a normal customer, you don't even know that it exists, okay. So, you know, all of these things, so the people who are in the know can actually then feel special. They're part of a special tribe. This is a little hot dog place in New York called Criff Dogs, okay, and it's called Criff Dogs because the two founders, one of them is called Chris, and what happened is his friend he was busy. The non-Chris friend was busy eating a hot dog, one of their hot dogs, and wanted to call his partner, and he said Criff, okay, so they called it. They said this is a good name for our dogs, Criff Dogs. So there's a story there, and they tell that story over and over again when people say, what does Criff Dogs mean over there? All right. But when you walk in there, okay, at the back of the restaurant, okay, or the takeaway is a little old style telephone booth, okay, and not many people know about this. You have to be an insider to know about this, all right. And what happens when you get into that booth, there's just a red telephone there and a little sign. It says, welcome to PDT. I'll tell you what PDT stands for in a minute, okay? This booth, this phone is our doorbell. Please dial one time and we will be right there with you. Thank you. And this PDT then is a little pub that is behind Criff Dogs, a hidden little bar over there. And so what happens is you grab your hot dog, but if you want to have a beer with it, you are let into the secret bar. And what happens is that you can then have your hot dog with a beer over there. So the dirty little thing, of course, around secrets is that they tend not to stay secret very long. And, you know, they say, please don't tell others. But of course, that gives you the excuse to go and do that. And you feel part of a special tribe, obviously. We can also learn a lot from Hollywood, you know, a sense of anticipation. We just had experienced this again with the new Spider-Man movie. My eldest son went literally on the night it was opening. My youngest son was not yet old enough. And I said to him, as soon as you turn 12, which was just a few weeks ago, I will take you. Of course, by then the movie was over, and now Daddy broke his promise to me, okay? It's that whole FOMO thing, the fear of missing out. And Disney is very good at this, to the point where Disney actually takes some of their most popular movies and then they put them in the vault for 5 or 6 years, and you can't buy this movie, you can't see this no matter what. You know, the Jungle Book is a good example over there, okay? You make it exclusive and scarce. And, you know, you use your diary and then only very special people can go through, all right? And the sooner it runs out, the better, obviously. You can tap into nostalgia, okay? Nostalgia and memories. You know, people of my age, okay, we're nostalgic about the time when we were young and handsome and having the time of our lives. And we now, because we've got a bit of extra cash, we'll spend a lot of money buying the things that reminded us. So this is the Fiat. The Fiat 500 of today is nothing like the real Fiat 500 of yesteryear, of the 1960s. In fact, it's not even a 500 anymore. It's called a 500, but actually it's got a 1000 cc engine in there. And, you know, VW Beetle, I'm in the process of negotiating to buy one of the new VW Beetles to remind me of the Beetle that I had when I was a youngster. And we all want to be a rebel and, you know, do what we want to do over there. We're coming to the end, folks, over there. So, you know, give them photographs, display special events. You might have, as one of the retailers does, they have a special Thursday morning for pensioners, and they pipe old music, you know, pensioners practitioners' music through the speakers. And, you know, if you're a youngster, you won't enjoy going there, but it's nice being there with people of your age, okay, enjoying the music from when you were young over there. So nostalgia value. And nostalgia is related to heirlooms over there. I told you I've got a NASA shirt now because I think that, I mean, I paid a fortune for this. I got it for a gift, but my family paid a fortune for this. But by wearing a NASA shirt, I'm, you know, giving a message about who I am. I lived through Neil Armstrong. I lived through all of these times when we were out there in space. So it's become an heirloom for me, all right? Watches and cherished possessions that were designed to last a lifeline. Okay, and as part of this, by the way, you know, the design and aesthetics of it is also fantastic over there. So, you know, Apple is a great example of differentiated, not because the computers are necessarily better or the software is necessarily better, but it says it's the message that it gives about you. The white earphones were a good example of that. Oh, Seth Godin talks about how important it is to belong to a tribe and a sense of affiliation and belongingness. Okay, so helping people become part of an identity of, you know, or a group that you manage over there. You're right at the center of it all. So, for example, we mentioned Manchester United and sports teams and your old school and patriotism towards your country or to your religion or whatever it is over there. We feel we are part of a tribe of people like us that will protect us and remember the things that we have all been through together. So, you know, a tribe then is a group of people connected to one another, connected to a leader, and connected to an idea. Now, at one stage, the computer software industry used to have user groups, and they used to invite people in the evenings, you know, software developers and others, and they used to invite customers to say how they use the software and talk about their problems. But it was a tribe of computer people got together and shared a drink and spoke about their experiences over there. And there's all sorts of examples. Lego is fantastic of this. They have all sorts of amazing things. They make movies, and the kids go and watch the movies. There's YouTube channels, all sorts of things, and then they hook up with things like Super Mario. My youngest son's name is Mario, so he's got a whole range of Mario products with probably thousands of rands all over the house. They look at aspiring architects and say, well, you know, you can build another version of the tallest building in the world or famous landmarks over there. There's for kids who want robotics, there's the Lego Mindstorms. And by the way, there's a lot more adults who buy these than children. Okay, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. And there's even a club of adults, the AFOL Club, Adult Fans of Lego. They actually have, it's a club. I think it's got something like 40,000 members the last time I looked. And these are people, adults who don't have children necessarily, but they love Lego and they go to exhibitions, and they're the ones who buy the most expensive products as well. All right, folks. So let's start wrapping it up. You know, we've got to touch what I call the et ceteras. First of all, the emotion, okay? Influence the emotion and get them closer to you emotionally. And then in that process, somehow build trust. There's got to be something about, you know, any relationship only becomes robust and enduring when there's trust. And without trust, there's often, you know, no engagement. You know, it's only about negative feelings or, you know, there's no sense of loyalty over there. I think that's what's important over there. So obviously the emotions, touching the emotions, building that trust, and then and that creates motivation and so on. And then of course the C then stands for things like, you know, my apologies, I went too fast. Control. Give them control, like Uber gives us control. It keeps us informed of what are the kinds of things that are important over there. All right. So, you know, this is where things like, you know, do we do something that motivates them? How good are we at motivating them to do something? This is where coaches at gyms are very good. They inspire you to do better. And speaking of gyms also, you know, there's wellness, but it doesn't have to be, you know, only the gym. There are some restaurants, more and more restaurants now, that are offering their customers kind of the superfoods, okay, for those who want it. There's a lot of vegetarian and vegan options, but they now are moving into specific items on their menu. And then there's even therapeutic venue where you provide therapy to your customers. It could be physical therapy, obviously, but intellectual and emotional health. I know when I've paid a high price to be with a personal coach, it's because they are there. It's not the content of what I learned by watching the videos. It's that I know on Friday morning at 11, my coach is going to be on Zoom and I'm going to have to be accountable to them. And they hold me accountable. Did you do your work from this week? Did you finish what you promised me you would do last week? This is where we can play an important role to help them to grow and to be much better than they were. All right, last two, okay? Let's move to the higher order ones. Added value through self-actualization. Can you help them to be much more than they were before they met you? Can you help them to be, richer? This is what investment companies do. Can you help them to be better human beings? Can you help them even sometimes vicariously? I remember when I was driving a Pajero, and Pajero actually won the roof of, not the roof of Africa, the Paris-Dakar rally, okay? The next morning after the final results had been announced, I drove outside the Pajero dealership, and what happened is they were waving flags and at the traffic lights, and then when they saw you driving a Pajero, a whole bunch of these young people actually came up to your car and they stopped you and they gave you a cup of coffee and a little gift and saying, hey, you made a good choice driving a Pajero. Look at us. We won the, Paris-Dakar rally over there. So, it was like, you're so clever that you made this choice over there. Okay. This is what it is. And by the way, they also offered free learn how to drive your new car stuff and so on. Go on to a skid pan. Another good example is the self-transcendence, where people feel they're doing good. So there are many shoe companies now that are saying, buy one pair and we will give another pair to a poor child somewhere. It's an impoverished child that now benefits because of this. That's where it makes a big difference. And, building schools and feeding people and contributing to charities. At my young son's school, they collect bottle tops. And for every 400,000 bottle tops they collect and submit, the school then nominates a person to get a free wheelchair. It's a lot of bottle tops, I can tell you. It's 400 kilograms worth of bottle tops. But these kids, there's 126 of them, and they are always collecting these bottle tops. And it gives them a good feeling when a child or an adult comes to the school to be presented with their new wheelchair. It's a wonderful, wonderful gesture. And it teaches the kids, obviously, to be generous. The spa in Louis Tricard does exactly the same over there. They give seeds to their customers and say, plant these seeds, and if you bring me your produce, I'll sell it, okay? And so they've created partnerships with their customers. Okay, so the reason I drive a smart car, it's not because it's a funky car. It is funky. It makes people laugh. It's, by the way, an incredibly safe car because there's a metal thing that surrounds you. Okay, in the picture over here, there's a whole big metal cage. So, the car can roll and you're fine. In fact, it's got a 5-star NCAP safety rating. Okay, but the reason I drive it is because it's environmentally friendly. It gives me a chance. Say, hey, you're saving the world, Aki. It's cheap on petrol. It parks easily. People joke with you. There's a club of smart users. And by the way, it's the best car to drive in South Africa from a hijacking point of view. Nobody steals them, okay? But at the end of the day, it's about something much deeper. And then they try and link it to various events and make it funky with things like this as well. All right, so let's wrap it up. Roberto Goizueta ran Coca-Cola, the most successful chief executive they've ever had. Okay, increased Coca-Cola's market value from about $4 billion when he took it over to $150 billion just a few years later when he left. And in a speech, he once made the following statement. He said, they say to me, do you sleep well at night with all the competition? And I say, I sleep like a baby. They say, hey, that's absolutely wonderful. He says, no, you don't understand. That's because I wake up in every 2 hours and I cry just like a baby. Because it's true, you have to feel that restlessness. If there's one quality that you need, it's not innovation or creativeness. You don't have to think differently from other people. But if you feel that restlessness, if you say, I need to do something different to attract my customers and keep them, then of course, that's the most important quality. Then you will know what to do. I'm just repeating a slide from last week because it's so important. If you cannot be distinct, then you're going to become extinct. Be interesting or be invisible. That's really the bottom line. Okay. Professor Young Mi Moon from Harvard Business School in her book Different makes this statement here. In category after category, companies have gotten so locked into a particular cadence of competition that they appear to have lost sight of their mandate, which is to create meaningful grooves of separation from one another. We don't want to be a clone of all of our competitors. And yet, when I walk into a shopping mall like Eastgate or Sandton City or Africa Mall or East Rand Mall, they all look the same. They've all got the same brands, the same everything over there. My time's up. Okay. But consequently, the harder they compete, the less differentiated they become. Products no longer competing against each other, they're collapsing into each other in the minds of anyone who consumes them. That's our duty to ourselves. Does it have to be complicated? Of course not. It's not about technological innovation. And remember that all ideas start out as a dumb idea. This is Seth Godin, okay? You know, it says, and in the statement before this sentence over here, let me take it off. He says, it's as dumb as selling shoes as on the internet, an item that comes in hundreds of sizes over the internet. It's as dumb as expecting people to find a date or a spouse online. It's as dumb as building an encyclopedia that anyone in the world can edit. It's as dumb as electric cars with a 100-mile range, vegan hamburgers, milk made from oats, free online college courses. You can study a degree online. He said, you get the idea. The next breakthrough is almost certainly going to be something really dumb from your competitor's perspective, or perhaps merely obvious and unoriginal. Okay, and we don't want to be obvious and unoriginal. So folks, ideas are like rabbits. You get a couple, learn how to look after them, and pretty soon you have a dozen coming through. Shine your light into the dark places of other people's lives. Okay, so I again went over my time, Tracy. I do apologize. Thank you so much for being so patient with me. In the final session, what we're going to look at is the sales part of this thing. All right, just looking through the questions now, and I'm going to put my camera on any minute. Thank you very much. Yeah, there didn't seem to be any questions over there, Tracy. Fantastic. So I can turn my camera on now. Where is it? There we go. And say one final thank you to you all.
Aki, thank you so much. You share a lifetime of experience and decades of research with us. And if every participant could just take 5 of the tips that Aki shares, I'm almost certain that you will differentiate yourself in the customers. To seeing you all next week, Wednesday, for the third and final part of this trilogy with Aki. And I thank everyone for joining us this evening. Aki, thank you so much.
Thanks to all the people at ORT for just doing such wonderful work. I'm very grateful for you guys.
Thank you
Thanks
so
a lot,
much,
Aki. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And David,
Thank
I'll
you.
be in touch with you, obviously.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Have a great
Bye.
week. Bye.
Bye-bye.